Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Here.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Here. Thank you. Next item will be the moment of silence. Board Vice President, Mr. Steve Majors.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Deputy Board Clerk, Cheryl Kelly.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item, number 4, formal adoption of the agenda. Any discussion?
Move approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Do we have voting buttons this evening?
You should have.
Okay.
There they are.
Next item will be the July 9th regular board meeting minutes. Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, Dr. Dunlop.
Yes, one of the things I think that our school board and myself were very proud of is the partnership that the city of Broken Arrow and the school district has. We work very, very closely together on projects, and we make sure that the decisions we make both benefit the city and, of course, the students in our school district. On August 28th, Tuesday, the citizens of Broken Arrow will consider 6 proposition questions regarding the city's general obligation bond. So here for details regarding that bond, we would like to invite our mayor, Craig Thurmond, and our city manager, Michael Spurgeon. They're going to come up and give us a lot of details on the upcoming BA Go bond.
Well, I just want to thank you for having us this evening. I really appreciate you listening to the bond. As you said, 6 items, $210 million. I do want to also acknowledge that Vice Mayor Udi and Councilor Johnny Parks are here. We appreciate this opportunity. It's something that's really important for our community going forward. We really, as we look at the opportunity to, as the city grows, we really need this. It's really necessary. And the great thing about it is it does not increase taxes. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael Spurgeon, let him give you the details.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the school board, Dr. Dunlop, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Before I just touch briefly on the proposed general obligation bond, I'd like to beg your indulgence to allow me to introduce the members of the city's leadership team. And I think it's important because our 2 administrations, we interact on nearly a daily basis. Dr. Dunlop and we have breakfast just about every once a month. Every morning we get together and we talk about different things, and then throughout the weeks and during the month we talk. We also have a lot of directors and senior staff members that interact on a daily basis. And to show our support for the school board in this initiative, I asked some of the department directors to attend this evening. So if I can, the mayor did mention Vice Mayor Scott Udi, so I'm going to ask Scott, if he will, to stand up so everybody knows Scott. And also Councilman Johnny Parks. He's our at-large council member. I'm going to start to my left. Over here behind the pole is Robert Rocky Hinkle, who is our Street and Stormwater Director. Rocky just joined us from the city of Norman back in late May, so we're glad to have him. Next is superstar Krista Flash. She's our Communications Director. She has been responsible for almost all of the public education materials that have been put out and coordinating the videos. I'm very, very pleased and proud to present her in the job that she's done. Next, we have Scott Esmond, our Parks and Recreation Director. Scott's been with the city for many years and has a large responsibility in terms of taking care of our parks. Moving to his left, I see our Assistant Fire Chief, Mark Stewart. Mark's been in the department for many years. He's been chief for about assistant chief for about 18 months, I believe. Next to him, we have Fire Chief Jeremy Moore, who's been with the city for just a little over 3 years. And next to Jeremy, we have IT Director Steve Stewart. And next to him, we have Michael Skates, our Development Services Director, probably one of the busiest guys in the city right now. And behind him, we have our Chief of Police, Brandon Berryhill. And next to him, we have Russell Gale, who is the Assistant City Manager for Administration. We have another Assistant City Manager, Kenny Schwab, had another function. He's over operations, couldn't be here this evening. The mayor just touched on the highlights. Just to reiterate what Dr. Dunlop and the mayor said is that on August 28th, the voters will consider a package of propositions that I believe will continue our commitment, the commitment that the community has made over the last 30 years of approving general obligation bonds to support infrastructure, reinvestments, as well as to actually approve additional projects that, what I believe in a nutshell, maintains the quality of life, the great quality of life that we have in the city of Broken Arrow. Before I do, I just want to reiterate what Dr. Dunlop said, is that we have a great relationship with the Broken Arrow Public School District and the administration. I want to thank you for that, because without working together, it would not be possible. And I'm going to mention in just a few minutes some of the important initiatives that Dr. Dunlop and her team suggested that made the package. Because we believe those are important for not only for transportation, but the safety of our kids getting them to and from schools. The package that the mayor mentioned, there are 88 projects or initiatives that are in the 6 propositions. Now, we started off with the package back in January. The city council looked at a package that totaled over $285 million. And the council said, Michael, there's not going to be any change in the tax rate, which meant I had to reduce the package from the $285 million worth of projects down to about $211 million in order to keep that tax rate the same. That was extremely difficult because there wasn't any project that we had to remove from what I call the cut list that wouldn't have been a great project for this community in some way, shape, or form. Fortunately, we were able to get it down to $211 million. We have to vote 6 times on August 28th because we had to break the projects into 6 different packages. The first one is transportation, and I'm going to talk about the information that was passed out to you to be respectful of your time. The first one, transportation, it's about $144 million worth of transportation projects, or about 67% of the package. The community basically said is that the number 1 priority in this community is streets, and number 2 was public safety. And so what we included, the council said we're going to focus this heavily on public safety, but it's not going to be all about asphalt and concrete. Because if you did that, and 5 years from now, people would go on, where are your parks, where are your public facilities? So 67% of the package in proposition number 1, transportation, will address widening of streets. It will address the improvement of our intersections, and it also dedicates $25 million over 10 years for neighborhood revitalization of streets and roads. Bottom line is, roads only last about 20 years, and so every now and then you have to go back in and repair those streets to make sure you get the full life expectancy, and at some point you have to replace them, and that's what the funds for revitalization will do. Secondly, we have 10% for public safety, about $20 million. That includes 2 new fire stations. Actually, we have bought the land from a previous bond package to build a replacement station number 7 at the intersection of 91st and First Place, Washington. And also, as the community grows, we'll make a decision about where to put that other station somewhere in the north part of our community. Parks and Recreation is about 9%, which will address neighborhood parks. It will address our sports facilities, because Broken Arrow is a youth sports community, and we have to maintain that commitment to our youth sports, and there's improvements in the package. Fourth is public facilities. Just like the school district, every now and then we have to go in and we have to provide funding for our facilities. The funds that are in there basically take care of our maintenance facilities, street and stormwater facilities. It's those individuals that are out 24/7, 365 that are working for our community. And the final two propositions are something people don't think a lot about. It's stormwater. And the stormwater improvements, the bottom line, when you make improvements, when you build roads, you have to move that water through the tributaries. You have to build detention ponds. You have to install a lot of piping underneath the ground that people don't see. And in order to make sure that you have a quality community, you have to get the water off the roads and out of people's yards. So there are two propositions that are going to be in the package. Now, the first 5 propositions only need the traditional 50.1%. Proposition number 6 requires 60% because under state law, we plan to do some improvements which are outlined in the voter information guide that will require us to do improvements on private property. So in order to take funds from the public and to make those improvements, which are both on public and private property, we have to get 60% to be able to go on the private property to make those improvements. So 1 through 5 requires 50.1. Proposition number 6 requires 60%. Now, the last 2 months, we have spent a great deal of time on public education. You have probably seen the videos that were coordinated by Krista Flash. There's going to be a total of about 20 of those videos, and what we focused on are some of the major projects within the 6 propositions. And in the last week or so, you're going to see the council members. Each one of those is going to give about a 45-second to a minute synopsis of what is included in each one of those 6 propositions. So we will have covered probably the number one way people get their information today is through social media. Secondly, is at your places, I see is we've given you a copy of the brochure that we are sending out to the various groups and organizations that we go out and give presentations to. This is just what I would call a quick hit of the 6 propositions, and we're passing those out. The piece that I'm extremely proud of is the document or the voter information guide that was sent to all the homes in Broken Arrow, which is a detailed packet that basically gives information on all 88 projects that are included in the 6 propositions. It also has a section which is very similar to what you received, some of the most frequently asked questions, for example, and why do we have to do general obligation bonds? And real simple, the city doesn't have any other significant revenue source to go in to be able to pay for a road widening. For example, to widen a road, and many of you in the audience have heard me say this, to widen a road from 2 lanes to 5 lanes for 1 mile without a bridge structure is about $5 million. If you add a bridge structure, you can add anywhere from $1 to $2 million to that project. Building a brand new fire station, Station 7, the estimate is right around $4.2 to $4.5 million. The only way we can afford to pay for these types of improvements, very similar with the school district, is to go ask our voters periodically for improvements, the funds to make these improvements. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention, then maybe the school board will have a question or two, is Dr. Dunlop has met with our team, with the city, on a number of occasions over the last 8 months. And during those meetings, we ask her and we ask members of her team on the front row, we're sitting there, we're attending these meetings, is as both citizens and members of the school board, what is important to you? What projects and initiatives do you think, I've got to find my sheet here, do you think should be included? So what we did was, we sat down and we basically pulled out a map of the city, and we looked at where the schools are within the community, where the schools potentially could be, and we wanted to make sure that those streets and roads that are a part of the school system, our city could handle the cars and the buses and so forth. And we also know is that we need to, as a community, address how we get the buses out of what I call the bus barn, because right now we need to make sure that they can accommodate all that transportation. So what we did was we came up with a number of projects which made the package, the council included. But before I do that, I want to say there are 3 still projects from the 2011-2014 bond that are related to the schools that I want to touch on. And the first one is in Florence. From Aspen to Olive, we're going to be widening that road from 2 to 3 lanes, and the plans and specifications are nearly complete, so hopefully we'll go out to bid for that road widening early next year. We also are planning to make 37th Street from 61st to 71st. We're going to widen that to 3 lanes, which actually create another ingress, egress for the school district, for the new school that's there. And also, we will be selling the bonds next year to make the improvements to take Albany from Lynn Lane to County Line Road to 5 lanes. Now, I can see Dr. Dunlap's eyes right now is thinking about the schools there. How are we going to do this to go from 5 lanes? Because it takes 9 months to build a road, and the summer only lasts 3 months. So how are we going to do this? So she and I, once I know we sell those bonds, we will sit down and we're going to have to basically plan out how we're going to make those improvements. We're also going to be making some stormwater improvements as a part of the Albany Lane widening. So you can see the community has previously approved some bonds. Included in the package, just briefly, first and foremost, is up around the Childers Middle School on Tucson. We're going to asking the voters for $800,000 to improve the intersection right there, because you can see it's extremely rough and it's worn, and it's not something that we could actually just go in and do a mill and overlay. We're going to have to do a complete rebuild. So from 1st to 5th there, it's going to take $800,000. Next, from 37th to 2, and also known as 209th, from Dearborn to Omaha. You know, we have Liberty Elementary there, and I can tell you from being out there and experiencing myself, just to know, we have a lot of stacking that goes on, and it's not really safe. That 2-lane road is not really safe, and so we're going to widen that road. We've included $5.3 million to actually address the widening of that road to be able to accommodate the traffic and also to support the school there. Also, the College and Juliet streets, we're going to be proposing to approve those streets for the school district transportation facility, and that's $4.6 million. And then finally, we've committed $1 million to help with the detention basin, and also what we're, as we're calling the Tiger Creek Nature Park and the Adams Creek detention pond, or the watershed there. We need to improve that, and as a part of our partnership, as we've asked for the voters to approve in Proposition number 5, a total of $1 million to be able to manage that stormwater, and also to continue our partnership to provide the ecology opportunities for our students at the high school. And so, with that, there's 88 projects and initiatives in the package. We will keep the tax rate the same. If, in fact, all 6 propositions are approved. I cannot begin to thank you for the support we've gotten from the administration and the support we've gotten from the school board to help us with this package. And at this time, to be respectful of your time, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have about any of the proposals in any of the propositions.
Mr. Spurgeon, first we want to thank you for coming tonight and explaining this. I'm sure there's a lot of things you could do in your evening, you and the mayor, as well as the representatives from the city. So I just want to thank you for taking that time. We do appreciate the partnership, and we'll look forward to working together as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Spurgeon, I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank each one of your staff members. I know how precious their time is for coming here, but also there was a period in time when we weren't working very well from a city perspective to a school perspective, and I think when we combine our resources, we're much more efficient for our community. And so this bodes very well for our community as it relates to not only serving our students as it relates to public education, but it also serves the greater good of the entire community. So thank you to each of those that came this evening, and Mayor Thurman, thank you.
Well, I was just going to say is that, in order to have a great school district, I believe you have to have a great quality of life. And quality of life, to me, the basics are infrastructure and public safety. And this package is laden with both to provide our community the resources we need to maintain that investment that it takes to continue to be one of the best places to live in the United States. And we've been recognized repeatedly over the last year for that. And I think that's because of the commitment of our citizens and the hard work by the school board and the city council. Thank you.
Well, and I really appreciate the collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next item, number 7, employment.
Okay, so we have some good things happening here. We'd like to make some recommendations this evening. The first recommendation is for Ms. Samantha Troutman to serve as the Spring Creek Elementary principal.
Move approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Is she here?
Yes, she's here. And there's Ms. Troutman in the back with her family. Do you want to introduce them?
Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Troutman. Ms. Troutman has served as an assistant principal in the district for a couple years and as a teacher, so we're happy to have her serving at Spring Creek. Thank you. Okay, next. This one is a recommendation for a Centennial Middle School assistant principal. We'd like to recommend Mr. Caleb Starr for this position.
Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Okay, Mr.
Caleb.
Starr, you're here, right?
My wonderful wife Jennifer is also an educator in a nearby district and has school functions managed as well. I do have 3 super excited teenagers that want to meet you. My oldest, Jordan, 16, and then my Fortnite special over here,
There we
Alex,
go.
my 13-year-old son, and then Tatum, my 11-year-old who will turn 12.
And we're excited.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. And he has been a teacher this past year at Sequoia, and he has previous administrative experience, so we're excited to have him join us. Next, we'd like to recommend for Country Lane Intermediate Assistant Principal Intern, Alexis Shahadi.
Move approval.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Alexis, you want to see it?
I'm alone. Why was I lost? I'm just really excited to be here. Thank you.
Congratulations.
We're excited to have Alexis. She actually has a unique experience coming to the elementary. She has taught high school the past couple years at our high school for English, but then she also has taught in TPS, middle school, and elementary ESL, so she brings a great background to Country Lane Intermediate, so we're excited to have you. And last but not least, we'd like to recommend for the Highland Park Assistant Principal Intern position, Ms. Stacy Gable.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
And Ms. Gable, would you like to stand?
I'm really excited for the opportunity, and I brought my entourage with me. This is my husband, Greg, my mom, Patricia, and my son, Pierce.
Congratulations.
And Ms. Gable has been a teacher at Highland Park and Park Lane and the recipient of many foundation grants. So if you've ever been over there, you've probably given her a grant in some past. So
Right.
we are really excited to have all those people join our team.
Congratulations to everyone. Next item is 11, the consent agenda that runs through, excuse me. Oh, sorry, comments from the public. We have none. Sorry. Item number 12, reports.
Okay, so this evening we have the pleasure of inviting Miss Allison Hutchings here. Allison is a representative from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We have partnered with them in the last few years. One of the biggest ones that I can think of is the Pennies for Pasta, but partners with the school district to raise money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. She's here this evening to just give us a little recognition and talk about some of the projects that they have been doing with us.
Thank you so much for having me this evening. Thank you to the school board and Dr. Dunlop. I appreciate it. I am the campaign manager for the Broken Arrow and Tulsa areas and surrounding areas for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, also known as LLS. And LLS exists because every 3 minutes someone is diagnosed with a blood cancer, and every 9 minutes someone dies from a blood cancer. And at LLS, we want to stop that from happening. We want to change that statistic. And I would like to share with you an announcement we just found out. Leukemia is the #1 killer of pediatric cancer patients, and we are on a mission to change that. And so LLS has just announced that we're going to embark on a brand new clinical trial for pediatric blood cancers with an anticipated investment of $50 million. And I want you to know that we are super excited about this, and we are able to do things like this because of what your schools give to us, and we are truly, truly grateful for all of their support. I know I have family in the in the Broken Arrow school systems and in other school systems as well. So I know it's not always easy to raise funds. It's not always easy to do that. So please know that we appreciate everything that you've done and all the support you give us. With that, I want to be cognizant of your time, and I would just like to recognize the schools that participated in our what you all call Pennies for Pasta, and it's within our student series program that we run within the schools. So Arrowhead Elementary, the coordinator there was Cheryl Dowd. They raised $1,353.82. Centennial Middle School, coordinated by Donna Schreier, raised $3,354.94. Country Lane Intermediate, with Christy Sturgeon coordinating that, raised $5,843.78. Oak Crest Elementary, with Christy Summers as the coordinator, raised $2,034.81. Oliver Middle School, Shafa Chaudhry and Nikki Rice raised $1,939.20. Sequoia Middle School, headed by Katie Lee, raised $1,000. And Wolf Creek Elementary, with Mallory Davis coordinating, raised $1,529.34. So the total is $17,055.89. That's amazing. Thank you so much. We are so impressed. We love you all so much, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have as far as the program goes. If you or your loved ones, of any school that would like to participate, please give me a shout. I also head up the Light the Night Walk that's coming up in November, also benefiting the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I do have copies of these letters. I'll leave them with Debbie if that's okay. So if you would like a copy with the names and the totals, please see Debbie. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Blackburn.
Good evening. This evening I'm happy to actually introduce to you Regional President Doug Bilyeu, who's come to us from Synergistic. He would like to express basically an honor to the district.
Thank you very much. Again, this is one of those fun little times where I get to come and deliver some well-deserved award to a district. And this time it is our Environmental Excellence Award from Synergistic, and this is based upon your results that really stood out of energy conservation since partnering with Synergistic back in the fall of 2016. So if I can get some help from Jaden Dykes, who's your energy specialist, who's done a great job, I can get him to hold up our big certificate here. And I will read off some of these results that really stood out to us here. So since you partnered with Synergistic, you have saved just over 36 million kBTU of energy, which according to the EPA translates to 5,228 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions that have been prevented, 1,089 cars removed from the road, and just over 134,000 trees grown for 10 years. But of course, that doesn't happen with the support from the administration and from the board and the staff and with the folks that Jaden works with each and every day, the custodial staff, faculty and staff with the Broken Arrow School District, and we want to say thank you. Congratulations on this well-deserved award.
Thank you.
And if I could, I'd like to present it to the board if we could take a picture at some point, if we could.
We were hoping for a check, but we'll take it.
All of us?
All of us. All right. Don't start me. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thanks for all your work. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I do. Put it on the wall. right, next item.
Referencing a big check, Mr. Allen, just to let you know, it is, the savings to date is a little over $600,000.
It's awesome.
So,
Impressive.
Great deal. Next item, number 14.
all right. In addition, I have the annual report in regards to the District Safe School Committee. This is a group of parents, teachers, health staff, child nutrition workers, administrators, etc., from different grade levels that come together and meet multiple times throughout the school year to discuss key topics that anywhere from bullying, education, health, which includes growth and development, child nutrition, as far as the food items that are being presented or prepared for our children, to physical activity, and then, of course, safety itself. Basically, just wanted to go over a few things that we have done this past year. As far as bullying education is concerned, the state requires us to actually review different curriculum that is possible for us to present to our students in an effort to curb bullying that's taking place. We have recommended to our middle school sites Victim Proof, which is a curriculum that not only talks about bullying scenarios, but creates or helps young men and women become leaders and regarding stepping up for somebody else, and also their own self-esteem and dealing with the issues that middle school children deal with on a regular basis. So that curriculum is being presented to them this year and to be used either during Tiger Time or when they feel like it's appropriate. The nicest thing about the curriculum is it takes a team, and with that, our teachers are given guidance and certain questions to pique the interest in discussions with kids, so they're not necessarily out there on their own trying to work through this curriculum. In regards to health, child nutrition was recommended to do a pilot program this past year for a health fair. We piloted that at Centennial Middle School. It was received very well, not only by the students, but also community members that actually participated in the event itself. Recommendation from the group was that we continue to move forward to see how we can actually hit all 5 middle schools. Maybe not annually, but at least biannual, so that when you have 3 grades going through there, they'll be at least exposed to the fair at least once by the time that they've gone through middle school. In the area of growth and development, this was proposed a year ago that we change our growth and development training for young women. We noticed that 4th graders were developing earlier than what our board policy stated in regards to providing 5th grade training and or education in this area. I have to applaud the staff that they went out and looked at the curriculum, partnered with Tulsa Health Department to come and provide this material to these young women, and basically to help them during this difficult time in their life of change. We've also implemented and updated the policy to reflect that. Physical education, in working with the athletic department and the PE teachers, we discussed how we could actually encourage students to be more involved in the community events that are taking place. We are blessed with a lot of different activities that take place in our community, but getting kids involved becomes the biggest task of all. So continuing to advertise those things, whether they provide incentives at the school sites, or which Mr. Dunn and Mr. Ellett are going to be doing this year, providing a track and field event for elementary students. Anything that we can continue to encourage kids to stay active, especially as they've gotten into now that they're in the world of computer games and wanting to stay in the house all the time. As far as the district safety concerns, this was actually an idea that was brought up to provide a district message across the board regarding a video that we could provide our faculty in light of the situations that have happened throughout the United States. Although I think our principals have done a very good job of explaining what to do at their sites, we felt like bringing a video that was brought from the district that might answer multiple questions for teachers and what to do in those types of situations would be beneficial for all. With that recommendation, that video was actually prepared and presented to leadership and received approval. So we will be sharing that with our faculty in the next few days. The last topic I wanted to bring up was and this was kind of the baby of the committee, was our Parent Awareness Night. We presented a material in April with community leaders in regards to growth and development, child nutrition, intruder on campus, drugs and alcohol awareness, suicide prevention awareness, human trafficking, bullying, and social media awareness. Although the walkout that took place in April bumped us back a little bit, and we didn't necessarily reach the numbers that we were hoping for, the parents that did attend and the community that were there were very appreciative of the information that was shared by the district. And it was a recommendation of them that we continue to find efforts to provide this information to them. So with that, the action steps are to continue to review how we can continue to reach people, our patrons, and on the key topics that they may be dealing with at home.
Mr. Blackburn, I have, first of all, I want to thank you because I know that it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to analyze much of the issues that have been brought forward by the individuals who serve in that capacity. But I wanted to ask, as we move forward year after year and you obtain different information and you may review some of the similar topics year after year, what data, in other words, what critical questions are we asking, or are we obtaining any information that might cause us to make some changes? What I would like to, again, this is not, it's not a criticism, so I'm not asking you to necessarily give me any feedback on this, but my question is, if we have the Safe School Committee and there are really a lot of good ideas that come from those that serve along with yourself and other administrators, how are we using that? How are we developing a baseline? And then what kinds of questions are we asking ourselves to the extent that we're improving in safety? And there's so many different areas of safety, which you brought up tonight, which I do appreciate very much. But I'd like to see from that process some form of baseline data that we use to look at those areas and grow from the information that we obtain in a report kind of format. So if it's, for instance, like we have an action line for students, correct?
Yes.
So we do receive some calls from students potentially throughout the year. Do we have an action line for staff members? What kinds of calls are coming in on those, on that action line, and what steps are we taking, or what are we learning from that? Those are some key elements, I think, that are really critical to giving our constituency the kind of feedback they need to see that we're making changes based on information that we are receiving, or a baseline that we're establishing on the various areas that are being brought to you or brought to those that serve on that committee.
I will definitely add that to a report for next year. I do want to let the group know that we do take surveys of the sites in regards to the subcommittees breaking up to gather the information to see what's the hot topic for kids and for parents. I will provide that data for you at the next time. As far as the anti-bullying or anonymous reporting site, that's very easily to collect for you and share that data as well. In fact, if need be, I can share that with the group at a later date.
I do appreciate it very much.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Blackburn, on your meeting you had in April, is there a thought of doing it maybe a couple of times a year just because it's so fluid and the things that these parents may need? Ongoing all the time or something? I mean, instead of just a one time a year? Or,
No, I completely agree. And in the process with having about 15 members, we grew from one topic to about 6. And I'm not, it's nothing against them. It's just these were topics that at the time were very important, not only to our district, but to the nation. And so we got caught up into a much larger product, which it may have actually hurt us by having it at the high school. That's something the committee did review at the end and did discuss maybe breaking some of these out, having it at a more convenient location, maybe less threatening if someone considers the high school too large for them to maneuver. But those were definitely the things we talked about.
Thank you.
Derek, I also wanted to compliment your team. We did get to watch the video today and leadership, and it's really well done. As I was watching it, I was remembering being in the classroom, and even though you hear the instructions of what you're supposed to do, or you may have discussions, it's different seeing it live in a video and kind of enacted. So really, really well done, and I think our teachers will really appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, number 15, Ms. Brassfield.
Long walk.
She's here somewhere.
Yeah, I tried to make it easy. Alrighty. Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay, good. Okay. Hello, and I hope you all are having a great evening. And I'm going to present on state test scores and how we did, and a little bit about how the state did. So we're going to start off with the statewide proficiency rate remains low as we are in our second year with our new academic standards. So they are still low throughout the state. The scores are slightly down in all grade levels and subjects except 7th grade math, which remained exactly the same. The state's highest proficiency rate was 3rd grade math and 5th grade science. For a second year in the row, math fell dramatically between the 7th and 8th grade. I don't know if you can see the little blue drop all the way down to the red drop, where it went 34% in 7th grade and dropped all the way down to 20% in 8th grade. So I kind of wanted to give you the gist of that and how the state was looking, all the scores dropping. We think it's just getting adjusted to the new academic standards. So parent reports are going to be passed out and released sometime the end of October. So we'll release them in, the end of September. So we'll release them in October. So when we begin to look at Broken Arrow's test results, you may think we have some low scores. And I'm sure all districts are thinking of that, but however, when the whole state dropped, we have to remember that we have some really great gains in some of our sites. So that's kind of what we're going to go over now. So as you can see here, Arrowhead, Linwood, Oakcrest, Rhodes, and Vandiver made gains in 3rd grade reading, and CLI, Liberty, Vandiver, and Wolf Creek made gains in 4th grade reading, as well as Creekwood made a 17% gain, which is really great. So a cool, interesting fact about all the gains is they all came from our title sites. In middle school reading, Centennial showed a gain in 6th and 8th grade, and Oneida Ridge made a gain in 6th and 7th grade. So in math, several sites showed a gain in 3rd grade math, which is Arrowhead, Creekwood, Liberty, Linwood, Oakcrest, Spring Creek, and Vandiver. And then we also had several gains in 4th grade, which is Creekwood, Highland Park, Oakcrest, Vandiver, and Wolf Creek. We did not present on 5th grade because our scores were supposed to come out today for the second time, and they didn't meet that deadline again, so we're still waiting on the FACE scores for 5th grade. So for math in middle school, we have a gain with Centennial Middle School in 6th and 8th grade math, and then Childers in 7th grade.
and Orms in 7th grade, and Sequoia in 8th grade. So our science scores, Centennial and Sequoia both made gains, and our high school scores were just pilot scores, so we didn't receive a proficiency score. So those will have full scores next year. In high school, though, we had the SAT, and so on the SAT, Broken Arrow was above the state average in reading and writing as well as math. And the districts had a choice between the ACT and SAT, so we're only compared to the SAT sites, which are Union, Muskogee, Tulsa Public, Oklahoma City, Chisholm, Yukon, Norman, and Middale. So a good takeaway on our point is Broken Arrow had some gains while the state had made losses throughout all their grades and subjects. However, we do see where there's holes and what we need to work on, and the instructional team is addressing that. And you'll see that in just a minute with Mrs. Peterson's proposal, her instructional proposal. So the instructional team is looking at those holes.
Ms. Brassfield, one of the things you were talking about is how we were tested for the first time last year on the new standards, so this is our second year. So through this, what's called a standard setting process, it's not the same thing as learning standards, but it's how you set the standards on how it's going to be measured with each testing or test item. What we experienced this year was what comes after the standard setting. They give one big test that basically tests every item, and they have to cover the entire gamut, so low, middle, high level test item. Then the second time that test comes around, that's when they pluck out items and they test them to a higher level, because that's the goal for the state, is of course to be college and career ready. So some of this adjustment is what you would see there, is just because they have placed a lot more high-level test items. But some of it's not, and we realize that there are some areas that we need to work on, and I appreciate you giving reference to Ms. Peterson's proposal, because that's exactly what we're doing, is we're going to address those areas that we know we need to address.
And I
We
think,
get copies of this? We can't see it, so.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to have something that I can look at.
You got it.
Okay.
You know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is Ms. Peters going to reference what we feel are areas of need, concerns?
Yes,
She's
she
gonna
will.
go over that? Okay.
Yep.
So I want to ask the question 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
No, you're
Okay.
good.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item will be the consent agenda items 16 through 75.
Move the general consent agenda items 16 through 75.
Second. Oh.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Sorry. Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Hang on just a minute, I gotta get this screen back up.
I'll let you catch up.
Sorry.
Next, item 76, Mr. Tolomeo.
Good evening. I'm here to seek your rejection of a bid received from Saga Roofing for bid package 7A, thermal and moisture protection for the child nutrition renovation project. After trying to execute a contract with them, they didn't meet our contractual obligations, so we're going to re-quote this package out.
So we need a motion to reflect that, to reject the bid.
Correct.
Okay.
Make a motion to reject the bid from Saga Roofing and Construction.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, 77, Ms. Peterson.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Dunlop, and members of the board. I am here asking for you to approve the purchase of math curriculum from Origo Education for elementary teachers in grades K through 5. The reason that we're asking, we have been looking at test scores over multiple years, and I know with the test changing, you can't really look at 5 years, but over the past 2 years, we have seen a downward trend in our math scores. They become very apparent in 4th grade, 5th grade, and on. And so we really do need a consistent curriculum that will help our teachers. So we also want to value all the work that our teachers have done with our OERs. So the OERs will always be there to help supplement. But to be very transparent in doing one-on-ones with principals at the very end of the year, I would ask, so what are you using for math curriculum? There was no consistency, and so that's a problem. And so we really are going to concentrate on professional development in math and then purchasing this curriculum. We're able to do that now because we got a textbook allocation. So we got approximately about $890,000. And so Ms. James and I talked, and she said, you know what, we have got to get a firm foundation in the elementary, because if they don't have those foundational skills, it doesn't matter what we do in the secondary level if they're already so far behind. And so we have worked it out. The cost is $500,000, $500,904, and that's K through 5, and it actually has there is a teacher manual. It's all online as well. There are student workbooks, but the thing that's great about the curriculum, it really gets our students to think conceptually and push them. It also, there's a piece for enrichment for our students that need to move on, and a piece for intervention. And teachers, no matter the grade level, would have access to everything else at all of the other grade levels for those students that are needing for us to fill our holes, or for us to move those students forward. So we really do believe that this plan would address the deficiency that we're seeing in our test scores in math.
Dr. Dunlop, I want to thank you, Ms. Brassfield, Ms. Peterson, for supplying us with the test scores. It's nice to see them and not have to see them in the paper first and see them at a board meeting, so I appreciate that. I have a question, though, because I looked at the SATs there, and it seems like when we see these scores every year, it's like we're here, then it goes down like this. But then you look at our SAT scores, and they, like you said, math or whatever, we were higher than state average in those things. So where's the disconnect, or what's going on, measurables? I mean, what's happening to where it seems like it shows we're not doing a very good job early on, which we're going to do better because you guys said with our curriculum, but our SAT scores are higher than the state average. So,
and we typically have always scored better than the state average, both on the SAT and the ACT. We do a good job overall. The end result is really what's important. Now, a lot of times when the test scores, you'll see like up 2% or down 2%. Those fluctuations don't mean anything. You're going to have average fluctuations, and even in some schools, you may see a sudden drop. Well, sometimes there's something happening in that school. We had that situation in one of our elementaries this year where we lost a teacher, and they were just really going through a lot. So, and it was in the grade level that they lost the teacher. So you would expect those fluctuations. Where you see a problem is where you see this downward trend, what Ms. Peterson is talking about. And we are seeing this downward trend starting about 4th grade and on, especially in our middle school math. We've just really been rocky.
Well, that's
somehow
what I look at.
We get made up, but
we know how to teach math here, and if you look at the scores, it's like, well, we must not have to teach math.
Well, middle school's just weird anyway, but
that
aside, we obviously, I really think it's hurt us so significantly the last few years because we haven't had the money to spend on textbooks, and we have had very crowded classrooms because they continued to cut our per pupil funding year after year after year. So now we're starting to see some of those effects. But I feel confident. I love the work that our instructional team is doing in researching and really finding out not just what's best in the state, but what's best in the nation, because our kids deserve it.
So this is a K through 5?
It actually goes K6, but we're purchasing K5. I know Miss James is still looking at exactly what she wants to purchase, but I will tell you, we have worked hard, and she has said whatever we purchase, we want to ensure that it aligns, so that when they pick up in 6th grade, it's not like it's going to be something completely different.
So Ms. James will be coming.
With the middle schools?
Yes,
Is that
Ms.
what
James
we're-
will be coming to you in the future with what we decide on in middle school and beyond. But we wanted to go ahead and get this started so we could put it in the hands of our teachers as quickly as possible.
Well, and the other thing that just this is going to benefit is having so many new teachers. They're walking in and they'll actually be able to have a place to pick up, and they'll have some curriculum, because that's what's been so difficult for our new teachers is not actually having that guide. Because our rock star teachers that have been doing it for a long time, they don't need a textbook. Most of them couldn't figure out.
And an interesting trend that we also saw is that our middle school math is really, not middle school math, middle school science is really, really good. So we're finding that our OERs work really, really well in some areas, but in some areas they really are a supplement. And math is one of those tough areas because, you have to practice. You have to have all these problems and ways to practice your skills. So really for math, OERs are truly a supplement. We still need a curriculum and something for the teachers to use.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next, item 78, Mr. Perry.
Good evening. We wanted to give you an update on the Instructional Time Task Force that has been meeting for the past 3 years now in regard to bringing our school start times in line with the educational research that's out there that elementary students do better starting earlier in the day or earlier in the morning, and high school students do better starting at 8:30 or later. Got many challenges and logistical obstacles that we're trying to find solutions with and look outside the box, and we'll start those meetings again this fall to see if we can make a decision or recommendation to you for the 1920 school year. We have 3 subcommittees within our group. We have a transportation, an elementary, and a secondary. And I was just going to give you a quick overview from those 3 subcommittees this evening so you're aware of what's going on, and be prepared to give you some updates throughout the fall also. So start with Mr. McNabb with the transportation.
Good evening. Which I got the benefit of heading up the transportation subcommittee. Really what we did is put together a cross-section of the district, including patrons, administrators, teachers, athletics, fine arts, and we looked at what options were available to us, and then both the pluses, minuses, and associated costs with each option. So we're going to continue to do that as we go forward, just to gather information.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Dunlop. I served as head of the elementary subcommittee, and we have been working diligently through the last school year as a subcommittee with patrons, parents, teachers, administrators, to also do the research to see what works best for our students. And through diligent research at all levels, we've discovered that the older students really do function better with a later start time. The elementary students obviously are up earlier and more attune earlier and succeed better when they start their mornings right off. We know there are obstacles and there are benefits to what we're looking at and proposing and thinking ahead for the future. But some of those obstacles, through working with transportation and the different departments, we are working together to see how we can overcome those. Some of the benefits are easily sold to our parents and patrons because in Broken Arrow, our mantra with having 100% graduation is truly going to be reached when we move forward into the future with what's best for our students. And we are all finding through all the subcommittees that these time proposals are really going to be beneficial. And through all the moving parts, we can work together and overcome those obstacles to do what's best for our students. So we'll continue by reconvening this fall to dig deeper into ways to make it best for our students and their future and their academic success as we continue on. Thank you.
And I headed up a secondary committee. Actually, we had 3 subcommittees within that secondary committee. We met as an athletic committee. Mr. Ellett helped with that, and again, we had somewhere between 15, around 15 parents, patrons, staff members, coaches that were a part of that. We discussed a lot of the advantages and disadvantages of the different start time options. Then we also had a fine arts committee, also a great turnout with that group. Dr. Dale helped with that group. Again, we discussed all the advantages and disadvantages. And so once a recommendation is made and a decision is made on that, we will go back and take those challenges into consideration and see what we need to do to help them. And then the last group that we met with was the high school secondary teaching group. And so we had teachers, administrators, instructional specialists, parents in on that committee as well. And they really saw the advantage there. There weren't quite as many challenges with that group, but a lot of advantages were seen with their older students being able to sleep in just a little bit longer and give them time for their brains to wake up before we ask them to use them each day.
And as we are finding out, there's many puzzle pieces to make it all fit and work. 128 square miles. There's a lot of ground to cover. You're adding, or if you do add just one bus route, one student moves in, that can add another 20 minutes and starts a domino effect on the rest of the bus routes through the day. Tulsa Tech is always a challenge. We have about 500 students that attend Tulsa Tech from Broken Arrow High School, and aligning the Tulsa Tech schedule with the high school schedule can be a little bit difficult at times. Obviously, there's concerns with students that are involved in extracurricular activities and how late they would get out at the end of the day if they had a later start time at the high school, and then by the time they got out and trying to go to work and getting homework done can be a challenge. So many things to look at, but we've got a great group here, and these 3 have done a great job. And what they've been challenged with this fall is don't say no to anything. Let's throw everything out there. Think outside the box, how we can be creative and do something nobody else is doing, and again, meeting the needs of our students. As you recall, when we did the survey 3 years ago with both our patrons and with our staff, it was about a 50-50 split on whether we should do this or not. When you get into rearranging parents' mornings and pickup times and days, and that can get quite emotional with the community, but we'll hopefully find a good compromise with everyone and come up again with a recommendation for you later this winter. Any questions?
Mr. Perry, we always have problems with transportation because of our current start times, correct?
Well, it's better. If you recall, several years ago we had 2 start times and we went to 3. Before we changed from the 2 to the 3, we were having students wait as much as 45 minutes to an hour at the freshman academy before their buses are picked up. Now I would say on average 10 to 15, 20 minutes at the most. Buses are pulling out at all sites by the end of the day immediately. Our bus routes are longer for students. So we did make some improvements in those areas. I think the biggest challenge that we hear from is the elementary teachers with the elementary kids because of the end of the school day, them starting later and starting, trying to keep their attention past 2 o'clock can be a challenge sometime that last hour or so, which is very understandable. So that's why we would love to move the elementary to an earlier start time and, again, be creative with the high school. May come to you with a 0 hour where some students have the opportunity to start a little bit earlier if they're on the tech schedule, athletic schedule.
So you're not talking about going back to 2?
That is correct.
different arrangement.
That is correct. And the shuttles, how many shuttles do we run across the district during?
Actually, as soon as we get them to school, we start moving them around.
And we just, I mean, 6-hour athletics to get the shuttles. I mean, it's.
Which, of course, in talking about getting students off the sites, it used to take us about an hour. We now do it with fewer buses, and most sites we're off the site in 7 minutes.
So would it help us efficiency-wise by having different, however you staggered them like you were talking about, for
This
transportation?
It's less to do with transportation, it's more to do with curriculum.
The learning?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And you know, we say we don't want bus routes to drive our decision in this,
Mhm.
but it, you know, it's reality too. We've got to get kids.
Yeah, get 'em to school.
Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm. So.
Mr. Perry,
Mhm.
am I correct to understand that, was it Jinx or didn't they make a change to their schedule as well?
Yes, they did, and they did it pretty late a year ago, last spring. Community pushed back a lot, and they went ahead and threw it. Talking with their superintendent several times this past fall, they felt like it was a positive thing for their district. Felt like the tardies and absenteeism, especially at the secondary level, went down. They felt like it was some of the teachers that were very opposed to it and patrons that were at first actually kind of got in line with it after a while and saw that there was some good things to it. Athletically, a lot of people blame their poor football season on having to practice so late every day. But there's some ways to work around that. We've talked with our coaches, and you know, maybe a split where you lift in the morning and work out, afternoon. So Jinx has done that. Sand Springs has gone to an earlier start time years ago. But again, with those districts, what's interesting is their square mileage is so small.
Right.
And to stagger, we've got to have about 45 to 50 minutes between each start time to adequately get kids to school. If not, if you try to squeeze in 30 minutes between the start times, just one little thing starts throwing off the end of the day, and that's when we start getting calls. You start getting calls, and it's not a positive thing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next item, number 79, Ms. Eniff.
Good evening. First month of the new fiscal year is relatively quiet for finance. We don't have a whole lot of activity going on other than trying to get ready for the new school year. Just as a reminder, our state aid allocation for this year, the preliminary number that's been given to us is $55 million, a little over $55 million for the district. So to put that in perspective, that is about $387 more per weighted ADM than what we received in fiscal year 17-18. So the true test will be to see how revenue actually starts coming into us when we start receiving that allocation in August. Obviously, we haven't received anything to date yet in July, but as we continue to receive revenue throughout the months, we'll be able to have a better picture of how the state teacher raises will affect our general fund budget. Also important to note, our ad valorem dollars so far is just collecting back taxes. We don't receive our large ad valorem payment until the end of December and January and through the spring. So it's very important for the board to remember that really through December we are living on ending fund balance to get the year started and to start to pay our teachers and pay our bills. So that ending fund balance is very important to us. Building fund, again, just a little bit of ad valorem dollars. And child nutrition, just a difference in some of the timing for claim procedures. So our general fund expenditures so far to date have been pretty consistent with where we were at this time last year, and I will move to our fund balance. This time, that figure has not been updated because, as you know, we go through a set of iterations for financial reporting. The first comes the estimate of needs audit that basically reports our cash fund balance to the board and is approved by the excise board, and I'll be presenting that in September. The next comes our annual audit and the comprehensive annual financial report, and that number will be audited and verified by our auditors, and that takes into effect some different methods of accounting, and so that number will come later this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions? Thank you, Ms. Enoff. Next item, number 80. Dr. Dunlop.
I think she's doing something. Okay, so members of the board, this item 80 is an agreement that we are proposing this evening that is between Broken Arrow Schools and a group called the Oklahoma Center for Education Policy. This group was actually started by two professors from OU, Drs. Forsyth and Adams, and they've been doing research on how to build trust in a school or a district, specifically around students and parents, and how there's a correlation between that and student achievement. So we know that one of our pieces of our mantra is 100% graduation. And so that means every single kid. And the importance of building that relationship with every single kid means we need to find out where we are currently and then how we can get to that 100% mark. So this Center for Education Policy last year, free of charge, did a survey with all of our students and teachers, and we specifically chose the Freshman Academy and the high school to look and see where are we. And the results, quite honestly, were shocking. There were some areas that were great, but there were also some areas that were surprising to us around, specifically around student trust and students feeling like they didn't have really one adult at the school that really cared about them and that they felt like they could trust. So we are tackling this head on, and with that we would like to partner with the Center for Education Policy because they have been doing this for many years. They currently work with a lot of school districts, but the most largest being Tulsa Public. And what they will do for us is they'll continue to do the research, give us the data, and then also come to us with recommendations on how we can continue to grow specifically at our Freshman Academy and high school. We're excited about this partnership. It's for 3 years and very, very inexpensive compared to most consultants because they are a research group and tied to the University of Oklahoma.
Questions, discussion?
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, 81, is new business. We have none. Next item, 82, move to executive session.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. All right. Number 83.
Oh.
To return to open session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, 84, statement from the board clerk.
The Board of Education, Dr. Janet Dunlop, Natalie Enid, Lori Kearns, and Michelle Birdwell entered into executive session at 7:13 p.m. to discuss the purchase of purchase or appraisal of certain real estate property in accordance with Oklahoma statute Title 25 OS Section 307B3 and to discuss teacher contract negotiations in accordance with Oklahoma statute Title 25 OS Section 307B2. At 7:40 p.m., Michelle Bergwald departed. The Board of Education returned to open session at 8 p.m. with Dr. Janet Dunlop, Natalie Enith, Lori Kearns. 18. This constitutes the minutes of the executive session.
Okay, next item 85, discussion and vote to approve a purchase of real estate property.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, I
Wait,
have a
hold on, say
question.
that
Are we doing anything to that effect? We only gave direction.
Well, but
You want me to?
what we decided in there was still
Okay,
certain
so-
items that needed to be.
Okay, so can I make the motion then?
Mhm.
Okay. I move that we give the chief operating officer the authority to negotiate the terms, conditions, and amounts related to a certain piece of real estate.
So,
Motion and a second.
okay. Okay. Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item 86, discussion and possible vote on teacher contract negotiations.
Okay. I move that we authorize the, okay, I'm just thinking, the
district
chief
maybe?
administrative officer and the chief financial officer to detail the terms of the agreement between the Teachers Association and the board.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item 87 is to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.